This is Volkswagen's 7-speed dual clutch transmission. Now this uses the dry clutches. And here we have the gear train assembled. Now what had happened to this unit is actually a component had broken. And what this had resulted in was loss of reverse. Apparently this is a common problem here for Volkswagen, and you'll notice that I bought this one in lots of 2, but I noticed they're for sale in lots of 10. They're on eBay. And what this is this is the bearing for the reverse shift fork. Here we see one at the top, and there's one down here. And of course, with this inner retainer broken, this was jamming, and of course the customer's complaint was loss of reverse. Now, to disassemble and reassemble this transmission is somewhat difficult. But real quick, just to point out a few hints, what we're going to do when we take this apart, we'll start out by removing this counter shaft, this whole assembly, and these 2 shift forks. Then what will happen is that we're going to lift these 2 counter shafts and then tip and lift out the final drive assembly. One word of caution is the side gears in the final drive assembly will have a tendency to roll around and be required to recover. So make sure you go ahead and put one of the bolts back just snug so that it doesn't get away. And then after I've removed the final drive, I can lift these 2 counter shafts out somewhat together. Now you'll notice the special tools that I'm using, of course, are a combination of wood. And of course wood does not mar the steel or the aluminum. Gentle tap with the carpethane hammer. And this really is only for very minor operations, such as simply moving the synchronizer hubs. But this is a screwdriver, and it's made out of a copper composite right there, so it won't mar the steel. Now, as I reassemble this, you want to make sure that I have both of the guide dowels. I had removed one, so that will make sure that I put that back. And I'll use a bead, a very fine bead of silicone there as my gasket. And then as I reassemble the top half, this bearing is going to be retained in the top portion of the case, and is actually a considerable press fit onto the end of the input shaft. So I'll have to be real careful doing that. Now, what happens is I will support the input shaft there within the bell housing, and then carefully drive the bearing onto the output shaft, pressing only on the inner race. Now, in the disassembly of this transmission, it was very difficult because you're going to have to actually remove this snap ring and forcefully pull the case and bearing from the input shaft. And we actually constructed a puller that allowed us to do that. So what I did is I was actually grabbing the case, and then the screw of the puller was going down against the input shaft, and then just simply lifted the case and the bearing off the input shaft.